Oh,
we'll start that way. Trent's here. She's Mrs. Jackson, Trencia Jackson, and we've got about 6 students here. And I told her that she could ask any of these students that pop in here. She's worried about being able to sell bees. So if anybody wants to give her a little support, you know, jump right in there and give her a little support. I guess no one gonna jump in there. Jamie ain't gonna tell her.
Oh, I'll tell her. If you have the bees, I believe you can sell them. Let me tell you. So you need to put it on Craigslist and put it out there. But the biggest thing is to make sure you have the bees.
Well, I try to tell all the students, if you buy bees from me, you got my stock. If you can't sell them, I'll sell them. And I've got enough people here can vouch for it. I've done it last year and the year before that. But if you're going to get into the bees, get you a plan what you want to do. You know, if you want to make honey, set yourself up to do the honey and don't give your honey away. If you're going to be chemical free, you can get a lot better price for it. And another thing to do is get your web page up. We got a man here can make your web page. If you don't have that done, get you a sign for your car, your truck, and that's all tax deductible. So you have a lot of options out there. I'm at the stage where I started basically trying to make honey, and I beat my brains out trying to make honey. And you have so much competition out there. The best thing to do is either sell queens, nukes, or do classes, teach people. I'm at the stage in my life where I'm going to start setting up for branding, basically. I think my name's out there enough that if people want to use it, I'm going to contact several people if they want to use my name. Like your bee supply houses, they should be giving you discounts. You should be able to get some advantage to that. I'm even looking into trademarking or copyrighting my name. That's something you want to look at down the road because you're sitting on a fortune out there. Get started the right way and pursue it. You know, you got to figure out what way down the road you want to go. Honey, selling bees, even teaching. I'm getting too old to run as many hives as a lot of people now, so I'm going to start switching over more and more to teaching and try to, you know, pass on that information to people. I know everybody's got questions tonight, so we're going to jump in there and let people ask the questions that they've been writing down all week, and I'll see if I have the answers to them.
Who's got a question for Don? Raise your hand or use the function. Mike and Tracy, go ahead.
On your website or on Facebook today, you had
Gotta speak up a little bit, Mike.
How's that?
Good.
Okay. On Facebook, I believe I read somebody posted a thing with the glycerin and oxalic acid.
I'm not picking you up enough. You need to get a little bit closer, I think, or set your volume up on your computer.
Okay. So let me check and I'll come back to you. Let me check.
Now we lost them.
How's that?
A little bit better. What did you do last week that you got it going real good?
Oh, we just turned the mic up.
Is it up all the way now?
Yeah, let me check and I'll come back.
Okay. I think Darlene had a question next. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. We're looking to use starter strips because we don't have a roller for our foundation. And we've been listening to y'all's videos all week long. Thank you very much. And Joe May, thank you very much. When you're going to use a starter strip, are the cells imprinted on that starter strip important?
Well, you could get by with just flat sheets, but if you have an embossed sheet and just cut it into strips, I think it does a lot better. It gives the bees something to work on. I've done it both ways. I prefer the embossing because I have the mill, so I use the same size, cell size in the brood chamber as I do in the honey.
Yes, sir. Thank you very much.
Okay. Now, we got a hands up feature on here, and if we can't see that, you can do this and we'll see you. Because somebody sent me an email they couldn't get on.
All right, I got John Roten up first. Let's, where the hell is he? Where is he? There he is down there. Okay. Go ahead, Joe.
Where is the flag?
What's that? What just said?
Where is the flag? I don't see it anywhere down
If you
here.
click on Manage Participants at the bottom, you'll open up a separate window, and then under that is Raise Hand.
Thank you very
No
much.
problem. All right, go ahead, Joe.
Okay, I've got several questions. I don't know if you want to answer them all, but one of them I'd talk to you about the plastic foundations, about cutting it in the starter strip. Now, on the plastic foundation, from one side to the other, they're half a cell off. Is that going to matter?
No, no.
Okay. I didn't think that it would, but last year I bought 100 count of each of the for the deeps and for the mediums. And so I was going to try to use them, cut them 2-inch strips, and use them mainly in my brood boxes. Is that fine?
Well, I don't use plastic. I don't recommend plastic, but there's people that has bought it. So I told them how to go ahead and use it. The best thing, if it's already drawn out, is to scrape the wax off and then go up to a pressure washer and clean them. And then get you a plywood blade on your saw and just cut them in about a 2-inch strip and then reinstall them into a regular frame. Now you've got 2 inches at the top that's plastic. So when they draw down from there, you're going to be able to cut your queen cells out. That was the question that came up originally.
Right.
How can I cut queen cells off of plastic? And if you're going to ship nukes, it's a good way to get rid of your stuff that way, because the first 2 inches or 3 inches is the weakest part of that new comb. If post office drops it, that's where it'll break. So I would say go ahead and use it that way. If you could afford it, just give it away. But I try to recycle and use whatever I can. So I try to give you reasons and ways to do things.
Well, I've got a bunch of them to do. I ripped up about 10 of them this week and put them in. Just put a 1.25-inch brad nail, just shot straight through it and bend them over on the back side where they're flat. So that'll hold them up there. And then if I ever want to take them out, I can pull them right back out. Because see, the plastic frames are not like the one for the wax foundation where you pop that strip off.
Well, they have a grooved frame, the grooved top and grooved bottom. But now, if you don't glue them, that's another reason not to glue them. You can pull that top bar out and set it midways on your saw. No, you turn it up on side and you'd set it up 3/8 of an inch. And then you could just cut that cleat bar out. And then I don't know about your bending over your cleats. What I use is a 5/8 brad and I use my table saw and push down on that cleat bar to push it up against that plastic and then shoot your brads in. You shouldn't have to bend over any brads. When you say you're bending them over, I think you're running too long a brad.
Well, the reason I done that because I can pull them back out real easy.
Well,
all I gotta do is straighten it up.
No, the beauty part of using a brad, you can stick your Hive tool between the top bar and that wedge bar, it'll pop right off. If you use staples, they hold so darn good that it'll rip that wedge bar up. That's the reason behind what I do.
Well, I just use brad nails, but you also have to stand that foundation up and run it through the table saw because it will not go into that groove because of the cells sticking out on it. They're too wide, they won't pop back into the groove.
If they went in there originally, they should go back in.
Well, so, see, the edges don't have cells on it, and it'll slide right up in there like that. But when you cut them, it's got the cells in.
Well, there's several types of plastic. The one you got has got the building frame. Is that what you got?
Building frame?
Well, it's basically a frame. Some of them have them, they're drawn out 1/4 of an inch all over.
Mine are probably less than that, I think. But they don't have cells around the edges, and the edges will actually go into the groove. But once you cut them and try to put it up, the cells won't allow it to go up into the groove. So you have to stand it up on and run it through the table saw to thin it down, and then it'll go up in there.
You shouldn't have to do that.
Well, I did because they wouldn't go in the groove.
Jamie's got the answer. I think he went down that road.
Well, it's working how I done it just fine, I think.
If you don't want to run it to a table saw, if you've got that plastic you've got to get rid of, you can kind of cheat and plug up a soldering iron and actually flatten it out with a soldering iron.
Right.
pretty easily.
Well, it didn't take but a second. Once it set the table saw up, just run it through both sides, setting about a 1/4 inch high on the blade, just enough to slip up in that groove.
Some people don't feel comfortable doing that, but I mean, if you are, that's good. But you know, it's just something else.
Oh, I've worked with wood all my life, so
Well,
it's no big deal.
there's another way you can do that is when we put our starter strips in our mini frames, we put a slot in there. So we stand the wax up in there and just take a paintbrush and dip it down about 1/3 of the way into the hot wax and just draw you a line on each side of that. And if it doesn't hold it in that way, you can redo it again with the brush. Because once you get, you practice at it, you get pretty good at it. One good lick across there on each side, and it's not coming out. That's another way to put them in.
My other question was, was talking about cutting those strips out. I went ahead this week and put one of my hives, I put 2 frames in that's got the starter strip, and I put one in the other. Should I get those in there now so they can be building the wax on and start laying larvae in so I'm ready to cut out for my queen cell?
Right now, I'd be careful until about Easter, because if you get a cold spell, you don't want to put a frame that's got a starter strip between 2 drawn out frames, because you might break that cluster up. That's what I would worry about.
Oh. Well, we've had some pretty warm weather.
Well, yeah,
And
I mean, don't get antsy. Believe me, I live over here, and I lost 75 nukes because if the weather was just like this. And I thought, well, I'm going to take a chance. I lost 75 nukes because getting impatient.
Well, I've got I told you about one of my hives that was a nuke I lost already. Well, I've got another one that they're just a good double handful of bees is all in it. No queen and no brood. They had just a tiny bit of brood that hadn't hatched. I took a frame of brood out of another hive and put in there, and I've reduced them down to a nucleus hive. Will they try to raise their own queen right now? I've had it in there for 2 days, and they hadn't tried to build a queen cell yet.
If it's too cold out there, they're not going to cluster up enough. If you're going to do that at any time, what I would say is take the frame with the very least amount of open brood. One of your outside frames, because you're going to figure when you put that frame in there, you got a 90% chance it's going to get lost. They're only going to cluster up on about 3 inches of enough to make a couple cells.
Right.
But you're looking at bad situation right now there. You might as well just chalk that one up as a learning deal.
Really? Well, I didn't know. Can I shake bees out of the other hive into there, or will they not agree with each other?
Well, you can descent them. I teach how to do that just by, you can either put a couple drops of vanilla in some sugar water and spray them, or you could smoke them pretty good and smoke both of them. But right now, the best advice I could give you is cut your losses now, because you got hives there. Don't weaken them down trying to save something that might be past saving.
Right. Okay.
If it makes it, chalk it up for, it's a good thing, but I wouldn't get your hopes up on it.
Okay.
In about 3 to 4 weeks, I would say, take a chance on it.
Okay. When should I start putting up my swarm boxes? I was going to try to put 2 of them up sometime.
You mean to make some cells?
No, just swarm boxes, and if the ones I've got swarm.
You're not going to have to worry about swarm boxes till you have 2 to 3 weeks of nice warm weather. And if you're going through your hive and you're seeing 3 and 4 inch patches of brood that's drone brood, then they're getting ready to start. So put them up. There's no need to put them up ahead of time. And there's people out there who will recommend putting a frame of old combing. That's nonsense. In warm weather, you put that in there. If you can get a swarm within the first 10 days, that's good. But if it sits there 2 to 3 weeks, all you're going to do is track the wax moth. Now, I would set boxes up with old frames and even some new wax starter strips in there. If it's starter strips, they could sit out there for 4 or 5 years. The wax moths won't bother them. But once bees draw wax out, they're more prone to get ate up with the wax moth.
Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay.
Hey, Jackson, go ahead.
I'm in the same boat as John. I'm having to use up some plastic foundation. And I know that you have a metal baster that you use for melted wax to use as glue, basically. Do you have a contact for that, or is that just a one-time thing somebody made for you?
That was, somebody had made that. It's all out of metal. You can buy a turkey baster out of plastic, but I found trying different methods. A paintbrush, a 2-inch paintbrush, works much better than anything out there. And then you use a lot less wax trying to put that piece in there. Wax is an expensive commodity.
Okay, let's see, Ro. Go ahead, Ro.
Yeah, I had 2 questions. One, I don't think I'd heard you talk about the desenting them with vanilla before. If you could expand on that a little bit. And also, if somebody was to take a class from you, what are the options for where to stay if you wanted to come spend a week or so? Is there a hotel near where you're at, or would it be okay just to use a tent if you have camping gear and just camp out there in the bee yard somewhere? Or how do you handle
I don't
that?
think camping at my bee yard will work out.
Yeah.
We have a campground that's about 4 miles, 5 miles from here. It's called Don Carter. It's a state park. They got showers, everything else. If you don't like doing that, you could go to Commerce. They've got Daisy, and they've got at least a dozen. And then in Gainesville, they've got another bunch. Cornelia's got a bunch. But as far as desenting, we do that method a lot of times when we're building a hive up and we put bees from one, like 3 different hives. We combine them and basically just over smoke them. And I got a video up I'm showing you about lighting a smoker. The main thing to learn is to light the smoker properly. When you blow that smoke on your wrist, it should feel absolutely cold. And the reason I try to teach you to do that correctly, because eventually you're going to buy some breeder queens. If you spend $200–300 on a breeder queen and you pumping away on this thing and it's blowing out sparks, one spark, you lost a good queen. So everything I tell you is got a reason. If you don't understand it, you tell me back up and I'll explain why I'm telling you that.
Okay, I just lost cell phone signal for a second there. That's why I hopped out of the car. But you were talking about desenting the bees with the other guy to combine them.
Right.
Can you tell me exactly what that is? I don't think I've heard about that one before.
Well, what you do is you make a neutral smell through the hive. Bees go by smell, so you can actually, once you get a little experience, you could take a queen and literally let her walk in a hive. Now, Joe May has done that, and he's probably seen me do it up here. And if you got a virgin queen or a dozen that's hatching out, they don't really have pheromones on them. You can let them walk into a queenless hive, and most of the time they'll accept it. But to descent a queen, you can either use smoke the hive you're going to put the new queen into, or smoke and then smoke your queen. Now that's what you call neutralizing the smell. They all smell the same. And when you dump 2 or 3 packages together, we just give a squirt of that sugar water with a little bit of vanilla in it, or you could use a little bit of spearmint. I wouldn't use wintergreen because it's a little bit stronger. All you're doing is just mixing up the smell so they all smell the same, so they ain't going to fight. There's no strange smell to them.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Sean, go ahead.
All righty. I've got about 200 questions, but I'll keep it down to about 5.
Just 200?
Well, I haven't got the bees yet, so I'm sure there's a lot more coming. So I've been making boxes like crazy. I'm getting ready to start wrapping hive top feeder ladders.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking that I heard somewhere using 1/4-inch hole. Is that correct? Or do I need something small?
You need number 8 hardware cloth.
Number 8, okay.
Yeah. Now, if you want to get by in a pinch, you can use regular screen wire. But you don't want to get the vinyl. You want to get regular steel wire that's black painted.
Okay.
I like the hardware cloth because we use it for several different purposes.
All right. And then when I do the hive top feeder, I've got a 1 gallon container that's going to be in the top. How much feed should I put in that? Maybe half a gallon or?
Well, are you talking about making a split or are you putting a packaging?
Both in general. I mean, basically, I'm just going to pour the feed to them and hopefully I see a bunch of baby bees.
Well, what I would do to start with, it's going to depend on your weather, is if you got that shoebox in there, like what we're doing on our last plans there, I would fill it about a third of the way, in and see how they pull it. Now,
Okay.
if the hive is building pretty good and they're pulling it good, then I would fill it half or 3/4, even full.
Okay.
We have bee yards and our out yards, we just actually fill them up a half an inch from the top because time costs you money and you don't have time to go there twice a day. If you got the smaller feeders that we was building, those hold about maybe 1.5 quarts. They're made out of milk jugs. So if you got the hive leaning forward and you cut it halfway, you're supposed to get a half a gallon, but when it's leaning forward, you're lucky to get maybe, 1.5 quarts at the very most, 1.25 quarts. So time is money. So you want to put the sugar to them. So if you've got a package or a nuke, figure 20 to 25 pounds. That'll get you up and running to where you can split it.
All right. I should have, okay, so that kind of leads into my next one. My plan is I've got basically 2 nukes and 3 packages coming in April. My plan is to have 100 boxes when they get here, 5 frame, 350 pounds of sugar on hand, and water's close
Double
by
that.
automatically.
Double the sugar.
Okay. That's just a couple more trips.
Well, here's the thing. There's a lot of people going to tell you feed this, feed that, 1 to 1, 2 to 1. The biggest thing is you can't live with no calories.
Right.
If you had your dinner and it was all diet food and you ate 1/10 of what you normally would eat, you're not going to feel good. So if you're putting them on new foundation, you want to get them so where they can draw it out good. The wax platelets are not going to start forming until they're eating enough. Okay, so the next thing is feed them 2 to 1 or better. If you ever open up a jar of Carol syrup and you see how slow that pours,
yep,
mix it a little bit thinner than that. Now, if you open a can of peaches and when you pour that, it's not splashing back on you,
right,
that's good. That's about what we put in the cans when we're shipping.
Okay.
But if you get it too thick, it's going to crystallize on you. And never boil sugar water.
Okay. In one of your videos, I saw something about fermentation of the feed and maybe adding a little bit of bleach.
No. The only reason sugar is going to ferment is either you got debris in the feeder or you're mixing it like Kool-Aid.
Okay.
There's a lot of people listen to too much stuff out there. They'll take a gallon of sugar or take a gallon of water. They throw 1/4 of a cup or even a half a cup in there, and they say that's feeding the bees. The more sugar and water you put in that hive, they have to evaporate the water before they even get to the sugar.
Okay.
Mix it to where you're going to build bees. If 1 to 1 was so great, it would save me money diluting my sugar down half or 3/4, diluting it down and putting it in the can and then selling bees.
Right.
I mean,
Okay.
everything that I'm trying to teach you is common sense. And evidently, everybody out there is just reading so much stuff, it's just plain nonsense.
Well, common sense isn't common. So the next thing I have is I heard a really odd statement on a video the other day. I see how close your boxes are, which I have no issue with that. Your stuff obviously works. But somebody said you can't keep packages too close together when you first install them. Is that true, or is that just something I should ignore and go on?
There's a lot of things out there you should ignore. I try to tell people when they ask a lot of questions, Ask questions of people that are in bees for more than 5 years, people that are making a living from it, not someone who's got all the kind of diplomas and they can't even keep 3 hives going.
Right.
I mean, that's what you want to look at. I mean, everybody's going to give you advice. The thing about the closeness, I try to recommend putting them at least 10 to 12 inches apart, because I like to teach students to take the frame out of the hive from the outside there, set it against the hive that it come out of, not the next one to it. That gives you room to set the stuff. If you got the room, set them 10 to 12 inches apart. That way you got room for your lid, your feeder, and everything else. Don't set stuff on the ground. Not only you're going to hurt your back bending up and down all day, but it's convenient. If you can save 20 seconds on each box, it adds up at the end of the day.
Okay. Let me see. So my wife wants to do honey for whatever reason. Apparently she must.
Well, don't get mad at her. Everybody has to do honey.
It's going to be on a different property, so I'm fine with it. But she wants to do Ross rounds. So we've got 2 nukes coming from Matt over at NDB Supply.
Okay.
When one of the nukes is going to be at my house.
Okay.
And what I was wondering is, can we put a Ross round super on that nuke when it shows up? Or should we kind of let the bees acclimate a little bit before we shoot for the honey?
If the nuke is boiling over really strong, I would at least put it, a super over that, a medium super over it.
Okay.
Because if they don't want to get into the Ross rounds, it'll start to put them in the swarm mode and they'll start making queen cells.
Okay.
But, you can make it.
So it could work out for me instead of her.
Well, I mean, that's why I did a little thing on Ross rounds last week, and I get a lot of people sending emails that, asking questions. Maybe they can't. I can do it on 5-frame boxes where people can't do it on 10-frame. The whole trick is bees will store honey and they'll multiply if they're healthy. Most people are not checking their hive. I mean, and worst comes to worst. Take a toothpick with you and pop drones out of it. If you got some drones in a comb, get out 10 or 12. If you can't see, carry a small magnifying glass. Look for freckles. That's the easiest way. If you eyesight's better, you can see the mites on there.
Right.
And to prevent the mites, the easiest way is to break your brood cycle, and then run small cell. I mean, people tell you anything out there, they'll sell you something. It's a proven fact. The small cell bees, the smaller cell, there's less mites can multiply inside of that. The standard cell, they said about 5 to 6, sometimes 7, but there's not enough food and resources in a small cell, so maybe 2 in there. And then by breaking your mite cycle, by making splits, is a more natural way to do it.
Okay. And then for making the honey, I've heard you say several times to make 1 to 3 gallons more honey, put fresh water in the hive or the hive top feeder.
Just plain water. That way, the young bees, they can come out and get a drink. They don't have to have the older bees hauling water back, even if it's right in front, 2 foot away from it.
We do that after the comb's drawn out, though, correct? For the super.
Yeah, you want to get that comb drawn out first.
Okay.
That's why I keep telling people, you buy a package, you buy a nuke, figure on 25 pounds. 25 pounds is a good number right in there. If you got a dearth on there, there's, bad weather, nothing blooming, you might put 35 pounds in there. Then again, if you're right in the middle of a honey flow, they might only take 5, maybe 8 pounds to draw wax. Okay.
And then last one is when you do your acrylic acid vaporization, I made one of my own.
Mm-hmm.
You put it about the center of the hive when you fire it off, or?
Yeah, I like to put mine in. Mine has got a long handle, and I try to center the burning unit to about the center of the hive.
Okay.
And then you want to put a rag in the entrance, and you want to maintain that. And when you unplug it, let it sit there for maybe close to a minute, because it's going to cool down and it's still going to disperse the vapor in there. And if you pull a rag out or don't use a rag or you got screen bottom boards, they're just going to fan real hard and they'll blow it out the bottom.
All right. Yeah, no screen bottom boards. I'm all solid. So, all righty. That pretty much covered it.
Okay.
Thank you
Jason
very much.
Bragg.
Hey, kind of like Sean, I'm brand new. I've got a couple packages ordered for spring, and just learning this stuff, watching a bunch of your videos. Really appreciate those. Lots of good information. One of the first questions that I had though is, and I can't seem to find this by searching anywhere online, is when you're setting up like a double deep. I'm in West Virginia, and we have some pretty cold winters. Setting up a double deep, I'm seeing two different things. I'm seeing like a deep box or a brood box is just a little bit deeper than a super, than a deep honey super. So is a double deep two brood boxes, or is it a brood box and a super?
Well, when you first put your packages in, don't demoralize your bees. I've talked about that on thing. Put them in a 5-frame box, a nuke box. Get them to draw that comb out because you're going all on new foundation. They can develop enough heat in there so they can make the wax and draw it out. And once they get that drawn out, then I hope you're putting them in an 8-frame. Leave them in there for 5-6 days. Let them draw that out. Then if you want to run double deeps, that's up to you. But we only run double deeps when we're shaking bees. A deep, 8-frame deep is probably going to run you 110, maybe 120 pounds. So if you're small in stature and you got your bottom board at your knee, the next one is at your waist box. And then the second box is going to be right at chest high. And once you get to that point and you start lifting that box up, it'll pull muscles in your back. I'm at the age where I can't do that personally. We go to our double deeps when we're shaking. I usually have an extra box and I keep it in a wheelbarrow or a high box next to me. I put a lid upside down, I set the high body in that, and I put a lid on top. I'll pull one frame if it's sealed honey and I'll put it in the box and I'll replace it with new foundation. I do it one at a time because I've done hurt my back 30 years ago, and right now it don't take much to get me where I can't walk.
Okay, so can they make it through the winter okay with one deep?
You want to let your box build up slow. If you put too many boxes on there, you're going to demoralize them where they won't even want to build.
Okay.
And then if you get a cool night. Now, you can run in West Virginia, you can run a single deep with a hive top feeder and make sure you put the feed to them and make sure you do the oxalic acid in the fall. Your goldenrod should have enough honey there to carry you through the winter. And by leaving that hive top feeder on there, you just go back and lift the back of the hive up an inch. If it feels like it's getting too light, if you pulled honey, feed them some of the honey back. If you don't have honey, then feed them a thick sugar syrup. And if you don't want to do that, if it's too cold, we stop feeding sugar water usually in November, and we don't start until after February because the moisture is going to kill them bees faster than anything. Just drop a couple cups of dry sugar in the back of the hive and the moisture. If you don't want to do that, you can use a piece of newspaper or a paper towel, put you 2 cups of dry sugar on there, put the lid on it. The moisture coming off those bees will dampen it enough and they'll use it.
Okay. Next question, your brood builder or what you're using for nosema in the spring with the tea tree oil and those mixes is I plan to start them off on that, but is it okay to feed that all the time, or do you just feed it at certain times? Or
well, if you want to stimulate your bees, basically that's got your antifungal in it, which is your tea tree oil. It's got wintergreen in there. It's got the sugar in there, and it helps build them bees up a lot faster. And we put, usually we're mixing up the springtime in a 55-gallon barrel, so we would use very maximum, half a teaspoon of lemongrass oil. If you put too much, because I've talked to a couple of people last week, and they said, how come when they come here, they're not robbing, and they're robbing at their place? And I've got 10 times more bees than they got. And after listening to them, they're putting too much lemongrass oil in, and it's causing the bees to rob one another.
Okay. So in one of your videos, where you show how to make that mixture, you mix it all up and you end it up in a half-gallon mason jar.
Right.
How much of that half-gallon mason jar would you put in a gallon of your sugar syrup?
Well, the way I've got that last video, I believe that I've done, I put a cup of water in the blender. That's your mixing agent. Then I put my oils in there. And I started out to where that formula could be used for a lot of backyard beekeepers. When we're mixing up for ours, it's increased because we're doing it in 55-gallon barrels. But the original formula, you put it in a cup of water and blend it for a good 5 minutes. You dump that into the half-gallon mason jar. Then you add some water to it. Bring it up to the top line on there. Shake it a couple times. Each line will make 1 gallon to 2 gallons of that feed. You add that there, that line there, from one line to the other is about a cup. That goes into your 2 gallons of sugar syrup.
Okay. I had talked to you on Facebook the other day, and I told you that before I found your videos, I didn't know where to start. There's not many beekeepers right here in my area. In fact, one of the reasons I want to start is because I never see bees here anymore. I used to see them in the yard all the time. You never see them anymore. But the two of the packages are 3-pound packages. They're Italian queens. And then farther along the line, I got to reading about Russians. So I ordered a couple Russian queens, but all I got coming is the queens. Those are coming a couple months after the Italian packages. And I'm on a pretty big place, so I'm probably going to put the Russians a little bit farther away from the houses because I've heard they're a little more aggressive. My question was, though, whenever I asked you about that, if I could steal a frame of brood from the Italian packages that's been started for about a month and just put that in with the Russian queens, you said yes, but use young brood. How do I tell if it's young brood?
If you want to look for young brood and you're not experienced on it, the easiest way to do it, it's a no-brainer. Take the center frame out of the hive. That's going to have the young brood and the eggs, the larvae, everything, unless it's an established hive. And then they're going to be more of that young stuff will be in a second box. Because right now in the springtime, if you're feeding them, if there's a honey flow, sometimes the bottom box has 5 solid frames of brood. So you got to have some young. Even if you pulled one from the side, chances are the bees will find a suitable larva in there.
Okay, and is that all you would add with them, is just with those queens, just 1 frame of brood?
That's all you want to do, minimum amount.
Okay.
I mean, you're not trying to make a split. You're trying to make queens, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But now if you got a queen in there and you put that frame in there, they might not make those cells.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
I just want to save those 2 queens first because I ordered them before I knew what I was doing, and all that's coming is the queens. Yeah. So when those new packages come, how long should I wait before I worry about oxalic acid and the vaporizing, or do you need to do that right off the bat?
Well, usually a package, you don't have to worry about mites. They sell so many packages, it's not a big deal. If you're worried about it, you can turn the package sideways, take the queen out before you do it, and there's a can of syrup in there. Take that out, close it back up, take about 1/4 of a cup of powdered sugar and just dump it across the side of the cage. Just take a paintbrush, paint it back and forth, and let it go down through it. And just pick the box up and roll it from one side to the other a couple times. You're dusting the bees. And just shake it just lightly. If you got mites, it's going to knock some off. It ain't going to kill them. It's a precaution. I wouldn't worry about myself.
Okay.
Usually when you get mites, you pull frames from another hive, or you've got old comb and stuff that maybe they're on that, and then you put it in there and you just populate it. Same thing with wax moth eggs. Okay.
And last question: if they have swarms, and you get the queen out of it, how can you tell if that's a mated queen or not?
Chances are, if you got an actual swarm, that queen is mated, more than likely. Because once she gets out in the air, she's going to have drones chasing her everywhere. And I would say if she wasn't mated, you know, that'd be slim. But you need to put the bees either on a white sheet or something like that and go through there. I've showed many a student here. If you got a swarm, I would guarantee you got a minimum of 2 queens, probably 3, minimum. Because most swarms in the springtime, a natural swarm could have as many as 30 queens in there. We had one here 5 years ago, and the students counted them.
Okay. Well,
That's nature's way to preserve nature. They don't do one thing singly because you got a lot of things out there. You got the purple martins, you got dragonflies, hornets, wasps. They're all chasing, you know, food.
Mhm. Okay. Well, that's all the questions I have for now. Thanks, Don.
Okay, Joe H., go ahead.
Don, I was watching your video on installing a package in a nuke box for cold
Mhm.
weather.
Yep.
How long do you leave that extra super on? Do you wait for the queen to come out of the cage before you take that extra super off, put the feeder down?
That basically is not really a extra super. It's an empty super box, and we use that basically like a funnel. So we spray the bees down, and we turn the box sideways and dump them in there. It acts like a funnel. But now, when you're getting back to a winter time, that's why I've done 2 different videos. If you put the queen between the frames with the screen facing down, you're going to have warm weather for a few days. See, the bees will cluster around the queen. There's only so many bees can cluster around that there between the 2 frames. But if you got extremely cold weather and you got to put a package in, you lay it with the screen facing up 90 degrees across the top of the frames. And then you leave that shaken box there. You shake the package in there. And what happens is the bees, they come up in a ball and they'll protect that queen. They keep the heat in there. That's why I've done a video on putting packages in 2 different ways.
So should you leave that shaken box on there until she's out of the cage then?
We tried, well, on warm days where you don't have really cold weather, the cage is going to be between 2 frames. It's going to be flush. The shaken box is basically to shake the bees in. If you got enough boxes, you could leave it for the next day. We usually go back and pull them in about 2 hours because we dump a bunch of packages in really quick and we're always short boxes.
Yeah, I'm pretty far north, and I think my packages are going to come at the end of April. So I'm thinking it's still going to be pretty cold out.
I got 2 videos. I know at least 2. There might be 3 up about that. And you can look at other people's videos. In fact, there was one at the Bee Club. They were showing out a video there. When you get that package, you don't tilt it back and forth like this. Bang it on one side, bang it on the other side. That whole bunch of bees should be out of there in about 4 to 5 seconds. If you just try to be so gentle, you're going to have 90% of them bees in the air.
Okay, thanks.
Jamie's been here, and I'm sure he's experienced the same thing. The way I teach you to put them in there, they're in there, and you're moving to the next box.
Okay. Paul, go ahead.
Don, how you doing?
Okay.
I kept bees, Jesus, about 30 years ago. And I'm in New York, and I have a place up north, and I'm going to start getting back into it. Unfortunately, the bears took care of all of my equipment back then, so I'm starting from scratch again. But my question is, I have 3 nukes coming and 2 packages, and I'm going to be installing these in my weekend home up north, and I was wondering, being that I'm not going to be there the whole time, and I might not be able to wait around for the bees to release the queen, so can I release her right away?
Are you talking about a package, or are you talking about a nuke?
About the packages.
Well, if you're getting a package from, say, someone down south, more than likely the queen's been in that package for 2 to 3 days at least. You could, personally, I wouldn't risk it myself. That's why they have candy in there. Let them come out. And they would accept the queen, but the problem you have, if you're putting them in on new foundation, if there's nothing, draw it out, she's liable to leave. And that's another reason litter come out by herself. And for some reason, people are still hung up on putting a nail through that candy. That candy, you have to look at it. That is a time-released door. Don't put no nail through it. Don't do nothing to it. Don't try to soften it. It's made to a certain consistency. Because if the queen gets out too quick, there's no foundation drawn, there's a good chance she'll leave. That's another reason, see. Usually, she's out usually within probably 2 days sometime after you put that queen cage in there.
All right. Jesus, I have so many questions, but
Where are you going to put these bees in New York? You in town somewhere?
well, I'm out on the island, but I have a place up north near Albany.
Well, I have several students up north, and they actually are doing more rooftop beekeeping up there and are very successful with it. They don't have a lot of
I have a cabin. I have 14 acres up there, and I was just,
yeah.
I have plenty of room. That's not the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But another thing is, what I was wondering is, I have 14 acres. About five of that is cleared land. How many hives can I keep on that property?
How many can you take care of?
Well, like I said, it's a weekend place, so I won't be there all the time. I mean, what you think my chances are just as good as living at the place where the bees are going to be, or?
Other than when you first get started, I would plan on being there at least twice a week to make sure they got feed. And if you're going to set them up to where you're going to go do it occasionally, I would let them build up that first box, and then I would run as doubles.
Yeah.
That would be, and then if you got a honey flow, then put you some honey boxes on. And if you're going to get into selling bees eventually, and even if you don't want to sell bees, only buy deeps and only buy mediums. Shallows is a waste of time and money.
Yeah, no, I'm not looking to sell bees. I'm just into it for the honey. But years ago when I kept bees, there was a strain out called Midnight.
That's back in the 60s. I started out with them.
And I don't see them around anymore. All I see now is the Italian and Russian.
Well, there's a lot of bees out there. There's probably at least 10, 15 different stocks or variations of them. My preference and what your preference is will be two different things. At 10 years ago, I was running 3 different strains, and I basically got rid of the Russians. I bought 10 Russians from one guy, purebred. I got rid of them in about 8 to 10 days. I mean, you walk around the bee yard 200, 300 feet from them, and they was out nailing you. And I got children come up here, and I got women coming up here. Got a lot of people going in and out. My bees, you can work in during a drizzle, really. I catch queens out there in the drizzle. So buy stock that you can work, not stock that someone says, this is great.
Yeah. I just have one other question with the swarm traps. If you hang swarm traps out, are you enticing your hive bees to swarm to those traps if you're putting lures in them?
No. Bees are social, okay? They're just like all these people that say, I'm going camping. I'm going to get away from it all. And the first thing you do is pull in a KOA or someplace where they got a bunch of campers. Bees will fly by and they see other beehives, and they'll land in a tree or something. There's no way you're going to entice them to come out. You're providing a place. Bees, first year, is normally not going to swarm. And I say normally. Now, the exception is bees go back to doing 2 things, multiplying and storing honey. If you got a weekend place where you're only up there every 2 weeks and you got a heck of a honey flow, they can fill a medium box and cap it in 7 days. So
Yeah.
Have enough boxes there, and as long as there's enough room, they're not going to swarm. Now,
But what are my chances of catching a wild swarm,
about the same chances if you win a lottery. I know, you put the box there, I mean, they land if they want a box,
Yeah. Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay.
Joseph Millwood, go ahead.
I'm starting with one hive. I was been watching, thinking about getting some of your stock. How many
Okay.
hives do I need to start with, packages or nukes, or what do you recommend to be if I want to hit 50 hives by the end of this year?
Well, if you can afford it, I try to tell everybody, start with 2 hives, because you're a new beekeeper, you are going to make mistakes. So if you kill the queen and you go back in a week and they're getting real noisy, there's no way they can replace the queen because you damaged her or you killed her or you rolled her. But if you had a second hive, you could pull a frame out of the middle and throw it in there, and they got the stock there that they can make queens from. So if you can start with 2 hives. And as far as how many can you make, that question will be how fast can you build boxes?
So 2 hives would give me the ability to split them into 50 hives in 1 year?
There's records of over 100.
Okay.
The conditions is feed them, have enough pollen coming in. If you don't have enough pollen, you can feed artificial pollen. But normally in most areas, there's enough pollen coming in. Take it slow, take it easy, because when you get 10 boxes, you're going to work 10 times harder. By the time you get some more boxes, you get up to 30, you ain't going to look at 100 anymore. You're going to look at maintaining what you got, because it takes about 1 year to 2 years to build your speed up. See, right now, a lot of beekeepers are going in their hives. It's taking them 15, 20 minutes to find that queen to check everything. I'm in and out of a hive in less than a minute. I'm in a nuke box out there, and I'm catching and caging queens in 15 seconds. You have to work faster, and you have to work more efficiently. That's why coming here hands-on shows you things that I can't explain on the internet.
Do you recommend just starting off doing the walkway splits, or should I try to start making queens for those nukes as I split them?
I would have a hive and keep them crowded. See, what the people's talking about, anybody that knows how to pick a frame up and walk away with a box, they can make a queen. The thing they're not telling you is you have to play numbers and the odds. A walk-away split, you're talking about 2 to 5 pounds of bees. So if you use one frame with already a queen cell that's sealed, you're wasting a lot less bees. Because even a walk-away split, there's no guarantee the queen is coming back with those bees. That's why we use minimal resources to make the most amount of bees. Walk-away splits, yeah, they work. Backyard beekeepers, yeah, I mean, they can increase a couple here and there. Your smartest way is to lit the bees. Take one hive and just lit it in a single story and check it every 12 days. When you got cells, one hive will produce more queen cells for more boxes than any one man first starting out he ever built.
When are you starting your first classes? You was talking about pay $100 a day to come down and when will the soonest that you be doing that?
I'll start doing, I'm doing my commercial classes right now. I've got people that start and want to learn boxes. I'm doing that now. If you want to learn the most for the amount of time, best time is come down in April. I'm going to teach you how to put packages in. I'm going to teach you how to split. I'm going to teach you how to walk around a bee yard and keep yourself occupied. And, you know, I would suggest bring you a little tape recorder. You're not going to remember everything I tell you. If you're a beekeeper for 10 years and you come here, 10 minutes, your mind is already confused.
I think that takes care of my questions for the time being. I appreciate it.
All right.
Okay, Patricia, she's been waiting. Let's go ahead.
Hello. How are you?
Hello.
Well, I already got mine answered pretty much. I wanted to know about essential oils a little bit more. Trying to figure out how to get started with them in the spring, which one to start with.
Have you used oils in the past?
No.
All right. The oils that I would order would be tea tree oil. That's going to replace terramycin, tylosin. And tea tree oil is going to keep your nosema, which is a gut disease. That keeps it down in check. Tea tree oil, wintergreen, spearmint, and lemongrass. Lemongrass, you want the small bottle because even a 1 ounce bottle will last you 3 or 4 years. Unless you're a big commercial operator, then I would go with a 2 ounce or a 4 ounce bottle. Your tea tree oil, I would go with a 4 ounce bottle, or if you can afford it, a quart. I buy mine in gallon jugs because I put it to them in the spring and I put it to them in the fall. And that way you eliminate them chalk brood, sack brood, even foul, a European foul brood. And you shouldn't even be getting that if you keep your hive clean. That's why
I've never had any of those problems, and so far so good on that end of things.
Well, your tea tree oil, you know, no matter if you've had any of those before, you can this spring or in the fall, you can get nosema. And basically, if you had 4 or 5 days in a row or 10 days in a row, what's been raining, the bees can't go out and clean out. They get a dysentery, so it's more of a preventative. It's not going to be no cure. It's a natural remedy.
Okay.
And you know, you can mix that up and it'll stay mixed 5-6 months.
Once you put it in the blender?
Put a cup of water in the blender and, you know, do your tea tree oil. If you're going to mix it up, now you can do it as a preventative or you can do it as a real treatment where you've got bees that's got problems, you just increase it. But for a small amount.
Routinely do it in the spring as a pre-treatment before they start building up in the spring?
I start doing ours when the bees are flying in the spring. We're going to probably start doing it in another week. We haven't even been around to check our hives yet. We've been so busy here we just brought in another 75 boxes to paint. I know Trin says I love that.
I don't like painting boxes.
Well, we've got, we're working about 4 or 5 yards around here. Plus we got, you know, repairs and changing out and stuff like that. But I talked about doing change outs. That's the number one thing right there. Change your box up.
I do that, yeah.
And that helps keep your beetles down. And then you're spotting your problems before they get away from you.
Yeah. Well, we've been 10 years and we've been chemical free so far. So I've got that pretty much under control. Just trying to figure out how to work in some of the essential oils. I like some of the ideas with that. So I think we're going to try that, just trying to figure out when to start it.
Well, if people, you know, there's a lot of people that still want to use terramycin. That's an antibiotic. Tylosin, that's an antibiotic. That's like cutting your foot off because you think you might get a gangrene in it. So just cut it off, you know.
Yeah. Well,
that's
the state of Virginia has started, you've got to have a veterinarian come out and inspect your bees and prescribe any kind of treatments like terramycin and that kind of stuff. They have to prescribe it by the veterinarian. They've started that since 2017. So, but I've never had to use anything like that, but that's a law they just passed in Virginia.
Yeah, they might have just passed that there. I bought a pack of terramycin. We got a horse and it's a feed store. They sell veterinary supplies and stuff and anybody can walk in. I bought a pack, I guess, 4 years ago because I was doing a bee club just to show them. And then I had a small container. I don't know how many grams it was. It was like $45, $50. And it was Fumidel B and another one's called Fumagellin. And it treats like 10 hives for $50. Well, for $25, you can buy enough tea tree oil to treat 200 or 300. So, you know.
Now, in another chat, you mentioned having people put paper booties on their feet. Do you only do that with the inspector, or do you do that with anybody that comes in the bee yard, or what
do you mean?
Biosecurity type measures do you use?
Are you talking about putting booties on?
Well, when I have people come to pick up nukes and stuff, do I ask them to do anything as preventative so they don't bring anything into my bee yard?
Well, I don't let anybody bring used equipment in my bee yard.
Yeah, we don't either. Yeah.
Because if you bring used equipment, especially you get people that's picking up nukes from you, they'll have 3 or 4 old dead out hives in there and they don't even know what they died from. And if they don't know, and if there's any honey or anything in there, I got tons of bees out there. If they fly in and pick up honey or anything, they could be spreading disease through my hives. Usually I walk out and I greet my customers. If they got that, I run them off quick. I say, get out of here quick. Come back when the truck's empty. You know, you might offend them, but that's your livelihood.
Okay.
Okay. Jackson, go ahead.
All right, I got 2 different questions. You have asked me about building 8-frame boxes. We're focused on building 5 frame right now, but I noticed on one of your package shaking that y'all were shaking them from 8 frame. Is that why you were asking me about building the 8 frame? Is that what
Well,
you build your
if
packages
you
from?
putting packages in a nuke, that causes them to build up faster. You can put them in an 8 frame high, but they're a lot slower. They have to build.
Shaking packages from 8 frames.
Soaking them?
Shaking them.
Oh, shaking them.
Yes.
Oh.
Is that why you were asking me about building 8 frame as well?
No, you need 8 frames to stock from. If you're going to sell bees, you don't want to pull all your bees from one hive. You rather pull one or 2 frames from a hive maximum. You got 10 hives there. You pull 1 frame from 3 different hives, you got a nuke. And then you go down the road and pull 1 out of 3 other hives. Or if they're good, strong ones, you pull them out of 2. And when you're selling bees, you run them in double deeps or you run them with a medium on top. Yes, Jamie. Oh, no. I thought she's waving for my attention.
The other question I have is, we have fruit trees as well, and we actually lost bees the first year from spraying fruit trees. So are there any natural things that I can spray the fruit trees with that are safe for the bees?
Well, I'm not much of a fruit tree sprayer. If you've got like rose bush and stuff like that, you can spray them with dishwashing soap, and that'll help do some of that. You know, there's products out there actually organic that it's not going to kill them. What it's doing is suffocating your pest.
Mm-hmm.
You can do the same thing in your beehive. There's people that don't want to put anything in a beehive. They want to do it as natural as possible. You could use plain mineral oil. You don't have to buy nothing. A paper towel and put some mineral oil on it, put it on your top bar. It's going to kill some mites, but it's, you know, how fast is it? How effective? That's what you have to look at. When you're in business, you have to do things most efficient. So, you know, when you first start out, maybe a bug fogger, a bug killer is what they call them, and you use mineral oil. The next step is oxalic acid. If you're using oxalic acid on a beehive and you do it properly, you're not losing hives. If you tell me you lost a hive, I'll guarantee it died from starvation, because there's no way mites can live in it. There's no way they can be immune to it.
Hey, Pat, the main thing is not to spray when their bloom's on. The bees won't go back to the apple trees. I run a 200 tree apple orchard with my bees in it. I don't have any problem with it. Just make sure you spray on the days the wind is blowing opposite of your bees.
Okay.
Okay. Mike and Tracy, go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me all right now?
Yeah, did something better. Did you shake the computer a little bit?
You threw it on the ground. I read on your Facebook page, somebody had posted a thing about glycerin and oxalic acid on paper towels. Did you read that?
No, there's been so many things put on my Facebook page in just the last 3 days. I hit it for the first, 5 minutes, and then I have to answer emails, or I'm going out in the front yard doing something. I've got people in and out all the time.
Talk about blending oxalic acid with glycerin and saturated.
With glycerin?
Yes.
There's a lot of people put a lot of stuff out there. Just because it's on the internet, I wouldn't. I have not used that. Oxalic acid by itself is the most effective, 100%. Now, if you're going with a bug fogger, mineral oil is effective 40 to 60%. You can put thymol in it, or if you don't want to put thymol, you can put wintergreen in it. You're going to get a little bit better kill. So there's a lot of people put stuff out there that, I haven't tried, and I've done a lot of things with bees, and, I'm not going to do something because somebody down the road says, try this. They might be trying to sabotage you.
Yeah. Well, it sounds just like something new, a new concept. I'm just kind of wondering if you heard about it.
I've seen somebody post and stuff like that. I've seen some of they're using mushrooms from the fungus and supposed to treat. There's a lot of miracle cures out there. There's a lot of miracle gimmicks out there. I kind of stand back and see what's going to work out.
Exactly. That's what I'm.
It's just like right now. We've done beetle traps, which is made out of political signs you throw away. And we put boric acid in them. And actually, here's a business card. we stand them up like this. We put 10 or 15 in a row, like business cards, and they're 3 by 5, and you seal up one side with Crisco. And then you turn it over and you drizzle down a teaspoon of boric acid in here. And then you seal this up with Crisco. And then when you lay it flat like this, in the back of the hive, the bees can't get to it. It ain't going to kill one bee. The Crisco actually attracts hive beetles. And they'll eat it, and the bees will chew away at some of that. And when they get to the boric acid, it kills them. It's 100% safe. And people say, well, they didn't want to put that in the hive. In 1940, they was using a brown bottle, and they called it roach proof. It was 99% boric acid and 1% powdered sugar. So it was put around kitchen cabinets around food. That's how safe it is. But we haven't put beetle traps in for the last 3 years. We keep them managed here. At the bee club, they was talking about, they got these little things they put in vegetable oil in. When you put vegetable oil in a beehive, that's like setting up a barbecue for people driving down the road. They smell that barbecue, they're going to turn around and go back. When vegetable oil starts to get rank, then beetles follow the smell, come right to it.
Now, what about this in the springtime with your oxalic acid? Do you just automatically treat them all? Or
Well, you need to look at your hive and evaluate. Usually coming out of winter, look at them. If you don't see any kind of wing damage, if they don't look like they're walking or limping or jumping around the ground, you're not going to over-treat them. If you're worried you have mites, give them a treatment. But if you got drone comb in there, the safest way is uncap 10 or 12 of them. Pull them out, put them in the palm of your hand, and look at them. You don't want to treat for something you don't have. There's no need to be treating, you know.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay. Robbie, let's see if your microphone's working.
Hello?
No.
Go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
Okay. I have a question about last September. On this one hive, I had 10 hives, double stacked, full of honey. I pulled the frames up. There frames was bulging of wax. Heavy. It was so heavy. What should I do next time?
I'm not understanding your question really, because you're kind of fading in and out on me.
Okay. Last year in September, I have this one hive, 2 boxes of honey. I was pulling frames out. These frames was loaded with honey, and the wax was real thick. It was like bulging out. What would you do?
If you had honey in September and your bees left, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it was so much. I mean, the wax was bulging out.
Well, the wax ain't going to bulge out unless it's getting hot. If it bulged out and it wasn't real hot outside, you might have had hive beetles in there, and then get slimy, and the bees won't even eat it. The bees will actually leave the hive. Did you have any worms on the bottom board?
No, it was just loaded with honey. It was heavy.
Well, I would have pulled all the honey off in September and give them a place to lay, because in September, if you don't have a queen laying real good, you ain't going to have no winter bees.
How many frames do I pull at a time? Just few?
How many boxes did you have, Robbie? Like brood boxes versus supers?
I had, at that moment, it was just 2 boxes, and that's it.
Sounds like you had too much stacked up. If you got a hive that's that full of honey, you need to get them going into winter, whether you live up north or south. Maximum 2 boxes.
Does that help you?
Oh, I was just wondering, what should I do? How many frames should I pull at that moment?
Pull as many as you can if it's in the fall. As long as you're going to leave them some food to eat.
Yeah.
Okay. John Roten. Where is he? Go ahead, John. John, go ahead.
Maybe he's got his mic off.
No, I just unmuted him. Go ahead, John.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Go ahead.
Okay. Hey, on my for some of my 10 frame feeders, I built them with 2 ladders and put 2 shoe boxes in there. I thought, you know, if I was feeding sugar syrup, I could put water in one and syrup in the other. Does that sound logical?
Yeah, I mean, actually, somebody sent me a couple emails just on that same thing. They had 10 frame boxes and wanted to know if we're going to do a plan. And basically, you could use the plan that we got for 8 frame or even a 5 frame. Just extend your box out to the 10 frame. 2 boxes in there, one with water, one. But in springtime, I'd be putting sugar to them. You know,
Right.
You know, in
In
the
both of
summer,
them?
you know, yeah, summer I'd use
Yeah.
basically water in both sides.
Okay. And the other thing was, I've got a beekeeper that helps me quite a bit here, and he told me what he normally does keep his bees from swarming, which he may, you know, he just produces honey. He just, once a week, he flip-flops his brood boxes. And I guess it disorients them enough that they don't swarm on him.
He's reversing boxes? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Well, if you reverse boxes, you're talking about putting the bottom chamber over the top?
Right.
No, it's not going to stop a swarm.
It won't.
No, bees, I mean, people can tell you anything they want you to hear. When bees get crowded, they make swarm cells from population or if they get honey
Okay.
bound. That's the 2 main reasons.
Right.
The third one's going to come in there. If you've damaged the queen, bumped her or rolled her now, they'll make queen cells.
Mm-hmm.
As long as they have room and they're not honey bound, they're not going to swarm.
Right. Now you had told me before, you know, I'd be better off if I didn't wear a suit, which I just wear the jacket part. But I am highly allergic to them. I got into a beehive. My uncle had bees when I was a kid, and I got lots of stings on me back then. And one sting will make me swell from my hand up to my elbow.
If you got gentle bees, you shouldn't have to be wearing a bee suit. But if you feel comfortable, I have new students. I mean, I've had one come here last year, a lady from South Carolina. She got her full bee suit on. I mean, she looked like she was going to the space suit, you know. But 20 minutes later, she pulled it off. I mean, she said, I didn't realize it, you know. But I've done a video out and back here where I've had 2 professors come here dressed in their bee suit. And they said because I didn't have enough bees in my boxes. And we pulled one box apart, took 2 supers off. And that's the picture. It's on my webpage. I got my chin on that hive.
I seen that.
They come boiling out of the box. They're not one stung me. And I told the one professor, hand me your glove. And I held the glove a couple inches over the top of the box. There was about 40 bees stinging that glove.
Okay.
So
that's the way they act to me. I mean, I tried it without a suit at first, and I touched, I guess one of them I went to pick a box up and got one underneath the hand hose, stung me. And then I put a frame in. I guess I done a little quick. One stung me on the thumb. I ended up getting about 4 stings there real quick and swole pretty bad. But I noticed with the suit on, they just attack the screen and stuff on it. And if one of them,
you probably have pheromones in your bee suit. It's just like the gloves. You can wash them. That smell will stay in that there. But, you know, once you get 1 or 2 stings, the bees will smell fear on you, and they'll come after the fear.
Oh, okay.
I mean, people don't realize that.
When I treated with oxalic acid, I just put on those black nitrate gloves. I could feel the bees hit my gloves, but none of them ever stung me through them. Do they not normally sting through a rubber glove or a plastic glove like that?
I've had people use those clear, they're not clear, they're sort of a latex looking gloves, and they said that they didn't feel them, you know, but if you get the bees mad enough, they will. Now, if you're going to learn to catch queens, you can't wear gloves. Your option there would be get you some liquid smoke like they use for barbecuing, and just put you a couple drops on your hand and rub your hands together, then wipe your face down. The smell will keep the bees off you.
Okay. Yeah, I don't like getting stung, so
I see Pat smiling. Put it behind your ears too.
I bet that attracts a lot of women, doesn't it?
Hungry ones.
All right, thank you, Don.
Okay.
Okay, we've got 3 more questions in line, and then we're going to call it a night. Tim, go ahead.
Yes, sir. I've got some of the roach red acid. Well, we call it boric acid, and it's 99%. And so I can use that straight, can't I, for the roach, for the hive beetle traps, or do I need to dilute it, or can I use the 99%?
Nope, you put it right in there. Don't overdo it. Now, that's one thing. See where am I? I can't see where I'm at. I'm lost up here somewhere. I don't know, maybe you can see it. What you want to do is put the boric acid down the holes and seal it. Now, when people call me back, boric acid kills hive beetles. When you say that they're not killing them, you know what the problem is? You filled up the whole area with boric acid. That's why if you don't listen carefully, you get 10 or 12 or 15 of them here, and you take a teaspoon and dribble. You just want a few grains in each of those columns. If you fill the columns, there's no place for the beetles to get in. That's the #1 reason people, they ain't paying attention to a little detail like that. It's like the oils. A drop will do you good, but 10 drops, man, that's got to be better. And so they overdo it. Boric acid, if there's no place for beetles to get in, they're not going to get killed.
Yeah, I remember you mentioned that last week when we discussed that topic a little bit. And there was something interesting that went on this week. I was down at our bee club, and there was a speaker there, and he was talking about putting the packages and everything in, and someone brought up the sugar syrup and how to mix it and everything. And I remember one time you said, never boil your water.
Right.
And that's what he says, well, make sure you boil your water. And I'm going, oh no, he's telling everybody wrong, you know. And the guy that I bought my bees from, the company that I bought my bees from, the owner, he was there. And so I went over to say hey to him. And first thing he looked at me and says, whatever you do, do not boil that water. I said, I know. But I wasn't going to question him because I'm a 1-year beekeeper, and you know I don't feel like I have the right to stand up and correct somebody that's been doing it for 25 years. But I just wonder how many people's going to boil the water, you know.
Well, you will be surprised if you come in these chats and then go to bee clubs, even if you don't come in these chats and you just watch my videos and then watch people's videos they put up, you'll start picking out the junk from the truth. And when, you know, people say they do this and do that, mention my name and you'd be surprised. They either shut up or they'll walk away because, you know, I'm trying to teach you common sense. And if it don't make sense, more than likely it ain't going to work. If I tell you something, I have a reason. I'm going to explain to you if you don't understand why I'm doing it.
Well, that's the reason I've made you my mentor instead of some other people that's around me, because what you see, what you've been saying, it makes more sense than what some other people have been saying. And when I get some extra money up, I'll probably take some of your classes also. And I was also wanting to mention to the gentleman that, I can't remember his name, that was talking about, I think it was John maybe, but he was talking about having trouble with the bees. The only thing that will help him that I know of is keep a well-lit smoker, because whenever mine gets kind of mad at me and I hear them coming at me, I puff in the air. I can hear them, but they stand off, so that helps keep them calmed down too. So tell them to keep a well-lit smoker around.
Well, I work my bees majority of the time without a smoker. When you come in my bee yard and my smoker's lit, I will guarantee you I've got new students out there and I can't predict what they're going to do. I've had people come in my bee yard that said they was experienced, that been having bees for years. The first time a bee, you know, running them all around the yard, you know, they're screaming and everything.
I know that last year, whenever I mentioned one time on one of the talks to where I pulled the top off too fast and they thought I was raiding their hive, and they came at me with the whole force. I mean, I got swarm stung, and that taught me. And I looked around and I didn't have a smoker lit. The only thing I could do was kind of a fast walk, because I've learned you don't run and you try not to swat. So I just kind of covered my face and walked kind of at a good steady pace away from them. It took quite a while before they quit stinging me.
I teach people that come here, when you get a hive and the bees are after you, walk up slowly to a tree.
Oh.
You see Jamie moving his head? He's heard it here. Get a branch and walk with the branch, stop walking. Turn the branch loose, the branch swings back. Any bees that are chasing you are going to chase that branch and then slowly walk away. That's, you know, people don't understand that, but I try to explain it to a lot of people, and they see it. They work here.
And the one thing I've also noticed with bees as well as yellow jackets, they love pine. They love pine for some reason. And I was out deer hunting, and I was sitting in my little deer blind, and I'm looking around, and I had about 10 yellow jackets all around me, and I just figured I was going to get hit, but I didn't get hit with them either. But I noticed that they all the time, they love the pine around me and everything. But my truck was closer than a tree was, so that's the reason I kind of beeline for it. I'm through. Thank you for your help.
Okay, Jason Bragg, go ahead.
Earlier, you mentioned that you vent each of your boxes in the summer. You drill a 1-inch hole in the front. Do you leave
1 inch or 1 inch and 1/8, whichever you got? Usually, when I get the 1 inch, I buy a whole set. The 1 inch gets worn out so bad, I grab the next size up, and that's the 1 and 1/8.
Do you leave that open so the bees can go in and out of it, or do you put screen over it?
Well, if you got a lot of hives, I like to put screen over them because you never know if you get, starting to get a little bit robbing. The more ventilation holes you put in the hive, the healthier the hive.
You put those right in the box, right? In the brood box?
Underneath the handhold on your hive box and your supers. And the only time you put the holes in the back is on your feeder. That causes a chimney effect, of pulling air from the bottom. I don't know if you've been out there. Put your hand in front of a beehive at the entrance in the summertime. It feels like an air conditioner. You can feel the air movement.
Okay, that was my question. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Ro, go ahead.
Yeah. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I just wanted to run by you my plan that I'm telling my grandfather to do. I want to make sure you agree with it. We're going to build 4 boxes, which are 2 of the 8-frame boxes that we bought the plans from you, and 2 5-frame nukes. And when we get the package, we have all year to get the 4 boxes filled, so we're not in any big hurry. When we get the package from you, we're going to put it in a nuke box and all 4 boxes have your feeder on them, so we're going to feed them.
Okay.
And should we just feed them until they fill up enough that they make a swarm cell to put in that other box, or should we at some point make them queenless so they make a swarm cell? Or how would you go about it?
You never want to make a hive queenless. If you make a hive queenless, they will make queen cells, but you lose production. Okay. There's a lot of ways to get them things to make queen cells. The easiest way is just to feed them. Now,
just feed them, and then they'll make the swarm cell.
When they get crowded,
we do our split from there. Yeah.
As soon as they get crowded, then you can make your splits from the queen cells. But if you're going to make a bunch of queen cells like that, you're not going to have enough boxes. You need at least 5, 6 more nuke boxes.
Okay. All right. So the game plan should be then we put them in the 5-frame box when we get them, so they're nice and compressed.
Once they get nice and full in there and they got all the frames drawn out, what I would do if he's wanting to learn bees and play with them is put them in an 8-frame box and then let them build up from there. Have a hive or 2 you can actually let it grow and get some honey and stuff from. Keep 1 nuke and let them make cells, and then from there make your splits and stuff.
Okay. All right. So just overfeed them until it gets overcrowded in that first nuke, and then they should make a swarm cell to put into the next box, and just do it that way.
Right.
Okay. That's our plan. I really like the plans we got from you, very, very detailed, and I like the new feeder plan. We just finished watching your video. Major improvement, I think, as far as the angles and stuff for a lot of people.
Well, we had a lot of people that's bought the older style plan, which was the last plan that we actually done, and some of them have problems with the angles. So that plan there was basically built for a person just with a skill saw and a square. They could build a beehive.
Yep. All right. Thank you. I think that's it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Pat, if you make it a quick question, go ahead.
Well, I didn't have a question. I had a comment for the
Oh.
guy that was talking about Russian queens. We bought Russian queen. I bought 2 a couple of years ago, and it's the only time I've ever purposely killed queens. They don't build up quickly in the spring. By the time my nectar flow was over, the Russians were finally getting ready to start working. And for us, we get a second nectar flow with cotton honey in the fall, so it worked out. But it's the only time I've ever purposely killed a queen. I killed the Russian queens and did away with them because they were so slow in the spring. And it's part of what people like about them is because for colder climates, they come out later. So it depends on where you're going to have them, I guess, but we didn't like them.
Keith, what was you holding up? Hold it up to your camera closer. A little closer.
Can't see it. You better read it.
It's
He's got
backwards.
No, it's not backwards. It's interesting in bees.
Savannah area.
Oh.
Something. Present.
Beekeeping course.
You better post it on the Fat Bee Man group so we can all look at it.
Yeah, my eyes is crossed.
Yeah, the windows are just too small on here to see it, Keith.
Yeah.
So, all right, I guess that'll call it a wrap then for tonight. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Don.
Okay.
And I'd like to give a shout out to Tom for helping me do the CAD work on the plans for the new feeder.
Tell him he did a good job.
So we'll see everybody next week then.
Thank you.